He should have been dead. Everyone around him assumed it. Captured. Surrounded by the elite SS soldiers who had already ridden off anyone standing in their way, he faced certain execution. The odds were stacked impossibly against him. There were dozens of trained killers watching. Rifles raised, eyes cold and unflinching, convinced that nothing could save him. The air was thick with expectation. The kind that grips a battlefield when one man is marked for death and everyone knows it. And yet, in his hands, he carried something that no one, including the SS themselves, had any idea could change the outcome. It was called forbidden for a reason. Not because it was illegal. At least not in the sense of international law. But because it defied the rules everyone thought they understood about combat. It was a weapon so unusual, so unexpected, that the soldiers who had trained for months to survive were instantly outmatched. He wasn't just facing superior numbers or elite training. He was facing disbelief. They didn't think it could exist, much less be wielded by a single, desperate man standing on the edge of death. That combination, fear, disbelief, and surprise, was the first advantage he had. The moment he deployed it, the battlefield transformed. What had been rigid and ordered descended into chaos. Rifle fire became scattered. Formations broke apart. And the confident faces of the SS soldiers were replaced by shock and panic. They had been prepared for a fight like any other, but this wasn't any other fight. They couldn't comprehend what was happening, and their confusion made them vulnerable. It's one thing to fight against numbers, but it's another entirely to face a force that bends the rules of warfare itself. He didn't just fight back. He shattered the expectations of those who thought their victory was already assured. There was a rhythm to his actions, almost instinctive. Every decision was precise, deliberate, and amplified by the extraordinary capabilities of his weapon. Bullets, grenades, and standard tactics meant nothing against it. The soldiers who had prepared for weeks, who had trained to survive ambushes and traps, found themselves powerless, fumbling against a force they couldn't anticipate. Even the leaders, veterans who had led men through countless battles, couldn't adjust quickly enough. One man, armed with a weapon that defied logic, was dictating the terms of engagement, reshaping the battlefield moment by moment. In those first few minutes, it became clear that his survival was no longer miraculous. It was inevitable. The weapon didn't just protect him. It amplified his presence, projecting fear into every corner of the enemy ranks. They weren't just losing ground. They were losing control, losing cohesion, and losing the certainty they had carried into every other battle. And as the initial shockwave spread, he realized something vital. This was more than survival. This was opportunity. Every second he held, every maneuver he executed, was setting the stage for an outcome that no one, including his own allies, could have imagined. By the time the smoke began to settle, the impossible had become reality. A single man, condemned to death and armed with a weapon few believed could work, had turned a moment of hopelessness into a moment of power. The SS soldiers who had intended to execute him were now disoriented, scrambling, and in retreat. Their confidence shattered, their plans destroyed. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was commanding the battlefield, proving that courage paired with ingenuity could rewrite even the deadliest predictions. In that instant, history shifted. A man who should have been a footnote became the center of a story that would echo for years. It wasn't brute force, numbers, or training alone that saved him. It was audacity. It was intelligence. And it was the sheer unexpectedness of a forbidden weapon wielded by someone the world had already counted out. This wasn't luck. It was a reckoning. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful weapon is the one the enemy never sees coming. The effect of that forbidden weapon was immediate and catastrophic. The SS soldiers had trained for months, or even years, for battles like this, but nothing had prepared them for what they were about to face. Their confidence, built on discipline and reputation, evaporated almost instantly. A weapon like this wasn't just dangerous. It was disruptive. It broke the rhythm of the battlefield, shattered formations, and created chaos in real time. The soldiers who had come to expect precision and control were suddenly scrambling, disoriented, and unable to respond effectively. Every movement he made, every pull of the trigger, amplified the confusion. What should have been a swift, decisive engagement became a nightmare for the enemy. And it all started with the courage of one man willing to wield what no one else dared. He didn't have the luxury of hesitation. Each second mattered. The SS soldiers were skilled, trained to adapt under fire, and they were numerous. Their weapons were conventional, their tactics rehearsed. But this man had one thing they didn't expect. An edge that defied logic, paired with someone who refused to be intimidated. He moved with purpose, every action deliberate. He wasn't reckless. He was precise. He knew that any mistake could mean death. Yet he also understood that hesitation would allow the enemy to recover. Time, in that moment, became a weapon in itself, stretched and manipulated by his actions. As the minutes passed, the destruction intensified. Entire sections of the SS regiment began to falter. Soldiers who had been confident seconds before were now retreating or frozen in place, unsure how to respond. The weapon wasn't just effective. It was psychological. It forced the enemy to question their assumptions, undermining the authority of commanders who had been sure of their plan. Communication broke down. Coordination failed. And what should have been a disciplined, overwhelming force became a fractured, vulnerable target. In effect, one man had turned an entire regiment into a reactive, disorganized mass, scrambling to survive while he dictated the pace and outcome of the fight. The battlefield was alive with tension, but he remained calm. His focus never wavered. He wasn't thinking about glory or recognition. Survival wasn't even the primary goal anymore. Every move was tactical, aimed at maximizing the weapon's effect while minimizing his exposure. It's the kind of control and awareness that comes from training, instinct, and an understanding of the enemy's psychology. He could predict reactions, anticipate movements, and exploit confusion. Every second that passed reinforced his advantage. The weapon was lethal, yes, but without his skill, courage, and focus, it wouldn't have mattered. This was a battle of wits and nerves as much as firepower. By the time the engagement was over, the damage was total. The regiment that had expected to annihilate him was in ruins. Units were decimated, officers incapacitated or retreating, and morale shattered. Survivors later spoke of disbelief, describing a force that seemed unstoppable, commanded by a single man whose courage exceeded everything they thought possible. His stand didn't just win a skirmish. It changed the outcome of the battle. He became the pivot point around which an entire engagement turned. And his actions ensured the survival of countless allies who otherwise would have been caught in the enemy's advance. The aftermath left a stark lesson in the power of ingenuity, audacity, and timing. One man, armed with what was considered forbidden and impossible, had reshaped the battlefield. He had destroyed not just soldiers, but certainty, control, and fearlessness within the enemy ranks. This wasn't luck or chance. It was precision, courage, and the willingness to act when everyone else assumed defeat was inevitable. History remembers battles, but moments like this remind us why individuals matter. In the chaos of war, it's not always numbers or strategy that decide the outcome. It's the resolve and intelligence of a single person willing to stand when no one else could.